There's power in life in showing up. That's what I kind of wanted to talk about today, actually. I had a cool experience this last week. I was down in Austin, Texas. Aubrey Marcus, and you guys might know who that is, and Matthew Hussey. They were throwing this seminar mastermind down there in Austin. I, like you guys, am a student as well. I'm always trying to learn. I go to 5 or 6 masterminds and conferences every single year. Always trying to learn from other people that are doing more than I am. One thing that's really cool about coming to a conference like this is if you pick up one thing that changes your life, it's worth going and having that experience. And I went down to this mastermind, and it was kind of interesting. What it was kind of a Valentine's Day mastermind. It was all about relationships and how to show up better in life in every way. For those that know who Matthew Hussey is, he's like known as the #1 relationship coach in the world. This dude's amazing. And him and Aubrey were throwing this event, and towards day 2 or 3 was the Super Bowl. And there's 50 guys and 50 women at this event. And they kind of told us going into the Super Bowl to watch, we're all watching it together. And they said, all right, one of the assignments is that every guy here needs to ask out one of the women here, and then we're all going to do it kind of a mock date tomorrow night, kind of do like a dinner date. And so when the game started, I went up, got myself a date, watched the game, had a good time, went to bed. But they also told us in the morning, they put us in groups of 4, 2 guys and 2 girls in each group. And they told us, they said, all right, in the morning we're going to do some exercises for you guys to get out of your comfort zone. And I hate these things. It was like, they want us to go to the grocery store and somebody had to propose to a piece of fruit. Or you have to, these dumb shit things they always want to do. Or you have to go and reenact the Titanic scene. Or the one that, one of them was, you have to go in the line of everybody checking out and yell out, if you're wondering why I gathered you here all today, and then take it from there. And so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, all right, I got shit to do. I got work. A friend of mine, she lives in Austin and wanted to grab lunch, and so I wanted to, schedule that. One of the guys in my coaching group lives in Austin. We had planned to get breakfast. So I was kind of looking, I wake up, I did the breakfast. I'm kind of looking for excuses to get out of doing this thing. And again, they put us in these groups of 4. So there was 25 groups of 4 going all over Austin doing this. And we're in the text thread, and one of the people was like, well, I was going to do brunch at 11 with some friends. And I'm like, hey, we don't have to do this. Let's just bag it. And one of the other ladies was like, no, let's do it. Let's just go do it for an hour. And I was like, okay, it worked. I got to do breakfast, got to keep my lunch appointment, so go do it for an hour. So we meet up, the 4 of us, at this Whole Foods. The dude proposes to a pineapple, as dumb as I was thinking it was going to be. But then next door there's a Target. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to get into this. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right. And so all these people are checking out at Target, and I just kind of let it loose. That was my job to do the next one. And it was really fun. I basically just started handing out flowers to some people and just paid for them later and all this. And this one lady comes up and she's like all choked up. She actually messaged me on Instagram yesterday. She found me and she's like, thank you so much. I broke up 2 weeks ago and this is the only Valentine I'm going to get. You made my day. And all of a sudden put me in a good mood. I'm like, oh, this is cool. People are enjoying this. And then there was another dude. He's like, hey, it was so funny because I'm buying these roses and he'd already bought his stuff. He's buying some cards. And he goes, can I get these? And he grabs a dozen roses. And I just loved it, just owned it. He goes, I don't have money for the roses, but I got the cards. My girlfriend's, she works at a bar, and she wanted to give something out for Valentine's to all of her customers. And so I was like, she'd give these to her customers. I'm like, yeah, of course, dude, I just loved it. He straight up was like, I wasn't going to get it because I have the money, but if you're buying it, I'm in for these. I'm like, yeah, go ahead and grab it. And it was really cool. Just got me in this super good mood. We're having a blast. But also while we were at the Target, there was one of the other ladies that was in this group of 100 people was just there. She happened to be there, saw her in one of the aisles. And we're like, where are you at? Why aren't you with your group? She's like, oh, I wasn't feeling it. I didn't really want to do it. And we're like, well, join us. And we just totally take her under our wing. And I'll be honest, it ended up being really fun. For the next hour, we're doing all this fun stuff and kind of go our separate ways. Well, at 2 o'clock, we're all supposed to get back together and kind of have our next part of this mastermind. And then at 7, we were doing the date with, whoever we asked during the Super Bowl. So we get together at 2 o'clock, and I just assumed everybody got a date at the Super Bowl. And so we're sitting there, and Aubrey gets up and starts talking about lessons that we can learn, putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions, and how he talks about, he's like, there's a lot of you that either didn't ask somebody out last night or didn't get asked out last night. And he said, what I want to do right now is I want to have each person that either didn't ask someone out or didn't get asked out to come up and talk about your experience, what you felt. And then we're going to match you with somebody that also didn't ask. And the first person up is the girl we ran into at Walmart, or at Target. And she gets up, and I'm like, oh, shoot, okay. And she gets up, and this lady, probably late 30s, just a really sweet person, and really cool, actually, but she could tell she was terrified to be there. And she gets up, and she's like, last night I had the worst experience. We're at the Super Bowl party, and I just kept hoping somebody would come up and ask me, so I didn't have to sit there without, you got a heart sticker on your clothes when you were asked, that way people knew you were taken. She goes, and nobody asked me. So I went home, I was just pissed. I went to the hotel, and I'm just like kicked in the bed. I'm like, I don't know why I came to this stupid conference. Shit always happens. And she's telling us all this. And you can just see like the pain that she had been going through. And she goes, I decided last night I'm not going tomorrow. I'm not going to do the activity in the morning with my group. I'm going to get on a plane, I'm going to go home. But it was her time of the month, and she's telling us, she's like, I had to go to Target to get some female products. It's the only reason, and I ended up running into this other group. And I was feeling so bad, I just didn't want to go to anything. And she goes, I ran into this group, and it just made my day. They totally took me under their wing. We had the best time. Jimmy was giving out roses at Target, and we were singing Titanic songs, and she had this best time. And then they ended up going, her and one of the other girls in our group, and spent the whole afternoon in the park. She just changed my whole attitude. I was so grateful to run into them and how that changed my day. And I'm sitting next to the other girl that was with us, and I look at her and I'm like, good thing we showed up today. And she's like, yeah, no doubt. And it was really cool. And so one of the guys stands up and he's like, well, I'll take you out. I want to take you out tonight. And I go and get her, and she's just happy as a clown. I changed her whole trip. And I was just so happy that we showed up. Well, then the next person that stands up is the other dude that was in our group. He's a guy from Arizona. He stands up. He's like, I didn't get a date last night either. And I'm like, holy shit. He gets up and he says, I came this weekend. I've really been struggling. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I've actually been looking into for the last 6 months becoming a monk. This guy's dead serious. He's like, you take an oath, and for the rest of your life, you don't talk to people, you're just on your own, 20 years of solace. I'm like, holy shit. And he goes, I was deciding this weekend what I want to do with the rest of my life. And he goes, I had so much fun here with you guys. I had so much fun this morning with our group. I'm just over here like, I was going to bail for no reason. This guy might have become a monk if we didn't go do this. And I look at the girl next to me again, and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. And he ends up having a woman jumps up. She's like, I want to go out with you tonight. And he's like, I just want to thank all you guys. I've had such a good time here. I know I want to be a part of society. I want to keep being around people. I was like, man. And it started hitting me. It's like, sometimes all we got to do is show up. Sometimes we overcomplicate it. Sometimes you don't have to be there with the right attitude. I wasn't. But you got to show up. 17 years ago, I came to a conference at this hotel. It was the one across the street. It's a little more ghetto, I can't remember. But one of these two hotels. And I've been in real estate for 6 months, and I sold like 4 houses. And I was about to get out. I was not loving it, didn't know what I was doing. And I'll never forget, I showed up to the conference. I didn't have any money. I had a credit card that had like $500 on it. So I decided, I got this flyer, it just showed up in my desk. It's pure magic, literally. And I called the number and put the $500 charge on my credit card. And I showed up. And the first day we're there, they're teaching me all the things I always wanted to know with real estate. I was pretty excited. I was like, wow, this is actually kind of cool. It's what I always wanted to know. I remember what I was wearing. That's how profound this moment was in my life. And they gave us a homework assignment that day, and I went home and I did it. And I got 2 leads, people that wanted to buy or sell a house. So I went back the next day. It was a 3-day conference, and again, I was blown away by this event. And I was just learning all this stuff. And I went home and did the homework. I got a couple more leads. And my first 6 months as a real estate agent, I sold, again, it was 4 or 5 houses. After that conference, the last day, I ended up signing up for this coaching program, dove all in, and 2 months later, I had 57 houses under contract. And it forever changed my life. And it changed my life because I wasn't going to go. I didn't have the money to go. There's plenty of things I could have been doing. I didn't know if I was going to be staying in real estate, but I showed up. And that forever changed the trajectory of my entire life. And so when this conference was, when I was first pitched to come to AlphaCon, it was just pitched to me. Jeremiah just goes, hey, I'm doing this conference. You want to come? I was like, yeah, great, let's speak. Next thing I know, I'm being dragged on like 7 websites. What the hell is happening? And I'll admit, it did look like something different than what I thought it was. And I was like, part of me was like, shit, I don't really need this. all these people on the internet trolls coming after us. And I started thinking to myself, like, well, maybe this won't speak. And I was like, wait, what am I talking about? I was like, who gives a shit? A. But B, I was like, somebody's going to pay to be there because I'm there. Or maybe because they know I'm coming. Maybe it's something I'll say that's going to change their life. And I said, so I'm going to show up for that person. Because there's people that hear these lives, maybe a couple, whose lives are going to change today because of the speakers that are on the stage. Just like it did for me, this is the same place 17 years ago. And so I said, I'm going to show up. And we'll just see how it goes. And I encourage you guys to think about in your lives where you're showing up or who you're showing up for. I had an experience a couple of years ago. I was down in Lake Powell before I sunk the boat. And we were having a good time. We were all playing. We were all just hanging out. And I got this strongest impression Saturday morning in Lake Powell, which means you got 2 great days ahead of you. Everything was perfect. Middle of July. I had the strongest impression of a buddy that lives in Denver. And I just had the strongest impression I need to go see him, like then, like that moment. And so I had made my buddies take me back to the marina, drove up to Salt Lake on my way up, booked a flight, told my buddy I was coming out to take him hiking that night. We were going to drive out to Breckenridge. So I ended up in Colorado. The next day, we're on this hike that Sunday. It's my buddy, been best friends since we were 12 years old. And I didn't know why I was even there, honestly. I was just like, had the strongest impression I needed to go, so I went. And we're on the hike, we're about an hour in. And he looks at me and he goes, why the hell are you here? So I don't know, just felt like I needed to be here. He's like, seriously, why are you here? I'm like, just felt like I needed to be here. And he shows me, he goes, dude, because I tried to kill myself 2 weeks ago, and he goes, I was about to do it again. I was going to finish the job. He's like, how the hell did you know to be here? I said, I didn't, dude, but let's talk. What's going on? This guy had been going through some things, and he felt like he was on an island, felt like he was alone, felt like he had nobody to turn to, felt like he was the worst human in the world, and was probably a saint, if you look at the situation from my eyes. And we just talked through that. And it's been a few years now, and I did a 40th birthday party this year. I invited 30 of my best friends. We all went out to Moab in October, and I did a roast for the opening night. And it was like the funnest thing I've ever done. Everyone just giving me complete shit. There was plenty of material. And my buddy got up, that dude from Denver, and he just looks at me and he just goes, that hike. And he couldn't even talk for like 2 minutes. He just stared at me. And it just was everything you could ever hope for as a friend, as a person, to be able to know that you're there for people in your life. So you're going to hear a lot about shoes and Lambos and bullshit when you come to conferences like this. But ultimately, for me, it's those moments where you get to have that relationship, where you get to sit down with your buddy and listen, and you get to be there for the person that has no one else to talk to, and they just know that you accept whatever they're going through. I had an experience a couple of years ago. My little nephew James, I think it was 6 or 7 at the time. So I used to always get my nieces and nephews whatever they wanted for Christmas. That was just kind of my fun little thing. I never thought they'd ask for something this outrageous, but he decides that year he wants a shark. And he made it very clear, he didn't want a baby shark, he wanted a big shark like in the movies. You can't buy a shark. You can't get a shark. And I did the best I could. I got a stuffed animal. It was like 5 foot one, it was a really big shark stuffed animal. And I was feeling good about my purchase, feeling good about showing up for James. And about 4 days before Christmas, my sister-in-law sends me a picture of his letter to Santa Claus. And it says, Dear Santa, all I want for Christmas is a giant shark. I don't want anything else. If you can't get it, call my Uncle Jimmy, he'll help you. This dude has more confidence in me than Santa Claus, the guy that gives every kid whatever he wants all year long. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a lot of pressure. I'm like, oh boy. First off, I was flattered. The whole point of the story is that little kid gets to go to bed every single night knowing that his life will never be that bad because he's got somebody in his life that's going to be there for him no matter what. Somebody that can step up better than freaking Santa Claus. So, to finish the story, I'm like, oh boy. So I get back on Google. How big of a shark can I buy? And you can't. Unless you're like Baron Davis with $20 million to burn. And so, I had this bright idea that just came to me. And I met a buddy at a business conference. He's the guy that runs the aquarium here in Salt Lake. I remember they had a big shark. And so I called him up and I told him, I said, hey, I need your help. I need to pretend that's my shark. And he goes, oh, even better, we'll just let you adopt the shark. We'll do a full ceremony and everything. He gets to name it, the whole thing. And so we get pictures of the shark, the certificate. Anyway, long story short, I show up with stuffed animal as well. I said, look, here's the picture of your shark. I've got it at the aquarium. We get to have this big breakfast. You get to name it. It's yours, but we got to keep it at the aquarium. Is that okay? Because I don't have anywhere else to put it. And to this day, it's been like 5 years, he still tells everybody he has a shark, and if they want to go see it, they can go to the aquarium. I was a better choice than Santa Claus. And so I'll tell you guys, back when I was building my real estate career, I started out in 2005, 2006, and I thought it was God's gift to real estate. My first full year, like I said, I ended up selling 60 homes that first year. I ended up selling 98 homes my second year. And this is 2007. I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then the market crashed, right? And I realized that I wasn't actually that special. We were just in a special time. And so it got really hard. It got really hard. And I lost all my money just like everybody else. It didn't matter what you invested in, you were going to lose it. I got stuck with a couple extra homes that I bought, not being very smart, had a bunch of debt. And so every day, from 2007, 8, 9, 10, I'd be going to work, and I had this prospecting booth where I would go in and I'd make my calls from. I had a stand-up desk and a freaking old school phone. I left my cell phone out of it so I wouldn't get distracted. I'd make these calls every single day. It was really hard. And some days just sucked. And I realized that it wasn't going to be very motivating for me to go in just to pay off debt. I had about 160 grand debt for these houses. I had no money. I remember twice I had to tell my assistant to hold his check because it was going to bounce. We had to wait for a house to close. And so I'm going in there every day and I'm trying to sell, I'm trying to make calls. But it's not really motivating again to pay off debt. It's really hard to stay on the phone. You get yelled at 30 calls. My goal was to get 1 out of 30 to give me an appointment. So I was like willing to get rejected 29 times in a row if it meant I could get the 30th one to give me an appointment. That was the game. And so I put a quote on my wall. And it said, show up today for your future self, because you never know who's going to need you. Because I didn't know what my life was going to do. I didn't know where it was going to go. But I knew if I showed up today, that things would happen later on in my life, and I'd be able to benefit a lot of people's lives, including my own. And that's what motivated me every single day. I had a vision. I had a vision board. I put all this stuff up there, right? And I was showing up for my future self because, again, it wasn't that motivating to get up there just for pay off another debt that I had. I mean, it was literally, I had a poster board behind my wall, my closet, in my bedroom, in the bathroom, where no one else would see it. And it had all the people I owed money to. And I just, every time I'd cash a check, I'd pay 1,000 here, 2,000 here, 4,000 here, and I'd start paying them off. And I mean, keep in mind, I remember going to church around that time, and the bishop's like telling the ladies, if they have $800 or more debt on their credit cards, ladies, run, they're reckless. I got 160 grand and no house, what am I good with it? And so I was pretty motivated to get that paid off. But ultimately I did, and then all of a sudden it got pretty fun. All of a sudden the pendulum swung. And I've been able to do some pretty cool things with my life. Like, in my intro he talked about, I've been able to go to 85 countries now. I've been able, right before the pandemic hit in December of, it's been so long, 2019, I had a goal on my vision board to take my entire family on a dream vacation. My family's like way into Disney. I am not. But that's what they all want to do. So I took every single member of my family with all my nieces and nephews, and there was 39 of us, and we all did I was able to pay for everybody to go to a cruise to the Bahamas, a dream trip. And that was, again, 2 months before COVID. And I mean, if we didn't do it then, it was never going to happen. Those kids were never going to be those ages again. Probably never be on a cruise again. But we were able to go have that experience. And I can just, every time I get to do those things, when we do the $100 dinner club, you know, there's an old saying I like to joke. It's like, if you don't think money can buy happiness, you haven't given enough of it away. Because it ain't going to buy you happiness, but you sure as hell can bring other people happiness. At least temporary. In a world of a lot of things that are not going the way that we want all the time, it sure is nice to be able to put a smile on people's faces. And so you do something like that cruise. And my oldest brother, you know, he'd been depressed for 15 years. And something clicked on that trip. Those stupid-ass Mickey Mouse they were on. And he hasn't been the same guy since in all the best ways. He's just completely flipped a 180. He's been as happy as I've ever seen him. And there's just some special things you can do, guys. And so like when people ask, who do you look up to? I'm like, I gotta be honest, like my 30s, I was pretty much just playing. But man, me in my 20s, that guy is who I look up to because it was so damn hard to sell houses. Like people will never understand that we're there. Every person you knew was upside down 20%. Nobody had any freaking money. And I had a list of 50 homes to sell a month. I carried 50 to 60 listings at a time to get one household. I was just trying to get through that. But it's the reason why all this stuff matters so much to me now, because I know what it took. I know how hard it was to do that, and I showed up for my future self. And so I honor you guys for being here, because again, there's a million places you could have been. There's a million things you guys could have done this weekend, but you're here, you're learning, and you're going to pick stuff up that's going to help you in your life. It's going to pick stuff up that you're going to end up being able to use to help other people in your lives. And so as things get harder, if you haven't figured it out yet, like figure out what your whys are, figure out what your motivation is going to be. And then again, when things get tough, remember to do it for your future self. Because I've had these opportunities with my friend in Denver. Or a couple of years ago, my brother JD, he grew up a diehard Los Angeles Dodgers fan, like the biggest fan. My earliest memory, one of them as a kid, was the 1988 World Series. Kirk Gibson hit a home run in Game 1. I remember watching my brother run around the house at this stupid parade. I don't know why I remember that. And it was one of my first memories I remember as a little kid. Like, he's a diehard Dodger. They hadn't been back to the World Series since. In 2016, the Cleveland Indians went. That's my baseball team. And I went to 6 of the 7 games on the front row. I'd saved up this money, and I just had the best 10 days of my life, right up until the extra into Game 7 when they lost. But the next year, we were the #1 team. And I was so excited. The Indians won, I think, 26 games in a row at one time. I was sure they were going to get back to the World Series. And so I saved up the money to go to every game on the front row again. And they lost to the Yankees in the first round. And but the Dodgers kept winning. And they had to go to the World Series. And when they clinched to go to the World Series, I texted my brother and I said, hey man, you go to the game. Like him and his kids watched 125 games that year. There's only 162 games. He said, I can't. I'm just kind of between jobs, and I'm not picking one kid. There's no way I could take all 3 of them, because there are 3 of the 4 were diehard fans. And I knew he would never accept it if I just, told him or whatever, but I just bought him 4 tickets to that game 1, so he could take his kids and go have that experience. And I get emotional because, again, it's so hard to sell homes, and I didn't have to keep going. I could have done a lot of other things. But that was my brother that was there for me growing up. That was my brother that was always trying to be there for me in every way. So to give a gift like that, it means a lot. And they caught it for alcohol. They all signed it. And I put it on my desk because sometimes work sucks. Sometimes it's just not that fun to go out there and grind. And I have to remember my whys. I have to remember why I show up